The first breath you take feels thinner than it should, as if the air itself is holding something back from you. Up here, above the clouds, where the earth rises into the sky, life exists on a fragile edge. The Himalayas are not just mountains, they are a world suspended between survival and silence, where every step, every heartbeat carries weight. Imagine waking up each day surrounded by peaks that scrape the heavens, where the wind whispers through valleys older than history, and where simply living becomes an act of resilience. This is not a place people conquer. It is a place that decides whether you belong. Long before modern maps traced these ridges, the Himalayas stood as a barrier and a sanctuary stretching across countries like Nepal, India, Bhutan, and China. Within this vast expanse lies Mount Everest, the highest point on Earth, known locally as Sagarmatha or Chomolungma, the goddess mother of the world. But beyond its towering fame, there are countless hidden valleys and remote villages where life unfolds in quiet determination. Here, the altitude shapes everything. Crops grow slower, fire burns weaker. Even time feels stretched, as if the mountains themselves are holding it in place. For the people who call this place home, survival is woven into daily routine. In small stone houses perched on steep slopes, families wake before dawn to tend to animals, gather fuel, and prepare for the cold that never truly leaves. The Sherpa people, among others, have adapted to these extreme conditions over generations. Their bodies are different, their lungs more efficient, their blood carrying oxygen in ways most humans cannot. But adaptation is only part of the story. There is also belief, a deep spiritual connection to the land that transforms hardship into meaning. In the Himalayas, mountains are not just geological formations, they are sacred beings. Many locals believe that each peak is the home of a deity and that disturbing them brings consequences. Prayer flags flutter across ridgelines, carrying mantras into the wind, while monasteries cling to cliffs as if anchored by faith itself. Inside, monks spend hours in meditation, their chants echoing through cold stone walls. Time moves differently here, not measured in minutes or hours, but in rituals, seasons, and the slow turning of prayer wheels. Yet life at the roof of the world is not untouched by change. The outside world has found its way into these remote heights, carried by climbers, trekkers, and the growing presence of tourism. Trails that were once used only by locals and traders now see thousands of footsteps each year. For some, this brings opportunity, income, connection, and access to resources that were once unimaginable. For others, it introduces a quiet tension between preservation and progress. The environment itself is shifting too. Glaciers that have existed for centuries are retreating, their icy mass shrinking under rising global temperatures. Rivers fed by these glaciers sustain millions of people far beyond the mountains, and their transformation signals a deeper imbalance. Villages that once relied on predictable weather patterns now face uncertainty as snowfall becomes irregular and landslides grow more frequent. The Himalayas, often seen as timeless, are changing in ways that are impossible to ignore. Still, despite the challenges, there is a rhythm to life here that persists. Children walk miles to attend school, their laughter cutting through the thin air. Shepherds guide their herds across high-altitude pastures, moving with a knowledge passed down through generations. Traders navigate ancient routes, carrying goods across borders that once felt impassable. Each of these moments forms part of a larger story, a story of endurance, adaptation, and quiet strength. And as the sun rises over the peaks, casting golden light across snow-covered ridges, the mountains reveal their dual nature. They are both beautiful and unforgiving, inviting and isolating. To stand here is to feel both small and profoundly connected, as if the vastness of the world has been distilled into a single place. In the Himalayas, life is not defined by comfort or ease, but by the ability to endure, to adapt, and to find meaning in the struggle itself. Because in these mountains, endurance is not a choice, it is a quiet agreement between human life and an unforgiving landscape. As the day unfolds, the true scale of existence here becomes more apparent. Paths are not roads, but narrow trails carved into cliffs, where a single misstep can mean a fall into the void below. Supplies do not arrive easily. They are carried on the backs of people and animals, moving slowly across terrain that resists every effort to tame it. In many regions, modern infrastructure fades away, leaving communities to rely on systems that have existed for centuries. Trade routes that once connected distant civilizations still pulse with life, though now they carry a mixture of tradition and change. Yaks, sturdy and patient, move along these ancient paths, transporting everything from food to construction materials. Their steady pace reflects the rhythm of the mountains themselves, unhurried, deliberate, and relentless. Along these routes, small settlements appear like fragments of a hidden world, places where strangers are rare and every visitor becomes part of the story, even if only for a moment. The isolation shapes more than just logistics, it shapes identity. In these high-altitude communities, knowledge is passed not through books alone, but through lived experience. Children learn early how to read the sky, how to sense a storm before it arrives, how to navigate terrain that offers no second chances. Survival is a skill taught quietly, woven into everyday life rather than spoken as something extraordinary. And yet, within that constant awareness of risk, there is also a deep sense of belonging, a feeling that this harsh environment is not an enemy, but a home that demands respect. Spirituality remains at the center of that relationship. High in the mountains, monasteries stand as places of refuge and reflection, their presence a reminder that life here is not only about enduring the physical world, but understanding it. Monks dedicate years to study and meditation, seeking clarity in a place where distractions are few and silence is vast. The sound of chanting carries across valleys, blending with the wind, as if the mountains themselves are listening. For many, this spiritual dimension offers balance, a way to face the unpredictability of life with acceptance rather than fear. But even in this remote world, the pull of modernity is impossible to ignore. Satellite dishes appear on rooftops of stone houses, bringing glimpses of distant cities into places where electricity is not always guaranteed. Younger generations grow up with a foot in two worlds, balancing the traditions of their ancestors with the possibilities of a connected future. Some choose to leave, drawn by opportunities in urban centers far below. Others remain, committed to preserving a way of life that feels increasingly fragile. Tourism has become one of the most visible signs of this transformation. Trekkers from across the globe arrive in search of something they cannot find elsewhere: challenge, beauty, or perhaps a sense of perspective. For local communities, this influx creates both opportunity and dependency. Lodges, guides, and porters form an economy that supports entire villages, yet it also ties their future to forces beyond their control. A single disrupted season caused by weather or global events can ripple through the mountains with lasting consequences. At higher altitudes, where even permanent settlements disappear, another kind of human presence emerges. Climbers push themselves toward the summits, chasing the idea of standing on top of the world. The journey is as much internal as it is physical, a confrontation with limits that cannot be negotiated. Oxygen thins to the point where every breath feels earned, and the body begins to resist the very act of survival. Here, the mountains reveal their most unforgiving side, reminding those who enter that ambition alone is not enough. Stories of triumph and tragedy are etched into these peaks. For every successful ascent, there are moments where the mountain asserts its dominance: sudden storms, avalanches, and conditions that shift without warning. The line between life and death becomes impossibly thin, defined by decisions made in seconds. And yet, people continue to come, drawn by something that is difficult to explain, but impossible to ignore. Back in the villages below, life continues with a quieter kind of courage. Fields are tended, animals are cared for, and families gather in the warmth of shared spaces as night falls quickly over the mountains. The cold intensifies, and the sky reveals a clarity rarely seen elsewhere, filled with stars that seem almost within reach. In these moments, the vastness of the Himalayas feels both overwhelming and intimate, a reminder that life here exists in a delicate balance between isolation and connection. And that balance is becoming more fragile with each passing year. The Himalayas, once seen as eternal and unchanging, are now revealing just how sensitive they really are. The ice that crowns these mountains, glaciers that have endured for thousands of years, is slowly retreating, exposing dark rock beneath where there was once endless white. What seems distant and silent here carries consequences far beyond these peaks, as rivers born in this frozen world flow down to sustain entire civilizations. When the ice changes, everything changes. For the people who live here, these shifts are not abstract ideas. They are part of daily reality. Water sources that once flowed steadily now fluctuate unpredictably. Seasons that guided planting and harvesting for generations no longer follow familiar patterns. In some villages, the ground itself has become unstable as melting permafrost loosens the very foundations of the land. Landslides and floods arrive with little warning, reshaping landscapes that once felt permanent. And yet, even in the face of this uncertainty, life does not stop. It adapts. Adaptation in the Himalayas has never been optional. It is a tradition in itself, passed down just like language or belief. Communities experiment with new crops, adjust migration patterns for livestock, and find ways to protect what little they have. Knowledge is shared not just within villages, but across regions, as people work together to face challenges that no single group can solve alone. There is resilience here, but it is not invincible. It depends on a balance that is increasingly difficult to maintain. At the same time, the cultural fabric of the Himalayas continues to evolve. Festivals still mark the passage of time, bringing color and movement to landscapes often defined by stone and snow. Music, dance, and storytelling preserve histories that might otherwise be lost, carrying forward the voices of those who came before. Elders speak of a time when the mountains felt more predictable, when the rhythm of life aligned more closely with the natural world. Younger generations listen, but they also see a different reality unfolding around them. There is a quiet question that lingers in these high places. What does the future of life at the roof of the world look like? Will these traditions endure, or will they slowly fade as change accelerates? The answer is not simple, because the Himalayas are not just a place. They are a living system shaped by forces both local and global. What happens here is connected to decisions made far away in cities that may never see these mountains, yet still influence their fate. And perhaps that is what makes the Himalayas so powerful. They remind us that even the most remote corners of the earth are not truly isolated. They are part of a larger story, one that connects climate, culture, and human resilience in ways that are impossible to separate. To witness life here is to understand how much can be endured, but also how much can be lost. As the light fades and the peaks turn from gold to shadow, the mountains return to silence. The wind continues its endless journey across ridges and valleys, carrying with it the echoes of everything that has happened here, every step, every prayer, every struggle. Life at the roof of the world does not announce itself loudly. It exists in quiet persistence, in the determination to continue despite everything that stands in the way. And maybe that is why these mountains continue to captivate us. Not because they are easy to understand, but because they are not. They challenge us to look beyond comfort, beyond certainty, and to see a world where survival itself becomes something meaningful. A world where every breath matters. If this story made you feel something, if it brought you closer even for a moment to life in the Himalayas, then be part of this journey. Subscribe to the channel so this community can keep growing. Share this video with someone who would appreciate it, and leave a like to support more stories like this.